Hey, what's up, everybody? Kip here, and today I'm going to be diverting a little bit from my mobile marketing series and kind of just talk about the tags that we commonly see in video games nowadays, like the tags like early access, alpha, beta, all these tags, what they mean and what they represent, or how they are misrepresented nowadays rather than how they should be. So let's just kind of get right into it. So let's start from the bottom. Let's start from alpha. So what is an alpha? So an alpha is essentially when the first version of a playable version, the first playable version, is sent to people, and it's there to detect any major flaws. This means that during the alpha time, major sweeping changes could happen that could completely reinvent the game. I think the most recent thing that I can think of is probably Breakaway, although I'm not too familiar on its situation. It seems a bit strange what happened to that game, because I don't know if the game's actually just done or if they actually are reproducing it, but that's beside the point. I just want to kind of get that out there. Basically, an alpha is designed so that you can detect any major flaws, so that you can make these big sweeping changes. You can totally reinvent the game in alpha. That's like what the tag is supposed to entail. And if you notice, you don't really see many. You don't really see many alphas, at least not on the public side. Like, oh, come join this public alpha. People don't, or companies do not really give you this, but they do for beta. And this is where we kind of get into it, where it's I wanted to build up what I'm about to say by showing you what alpha is and what beta is. So beta is essentially the actual, what a beta video game test should be, is the first publicly available version of the game, where it's supposed to find bugs more than anything. It is a playable version. Maybe there's things that aren't finished and things that will be iterated on, like quality of life mostly, or just like extra little tools and whatever. For instance, in MOBAs, it'd be something like a replay system, or it'd be some of these extra tools like this. These are things that would be iterated on in the beta stage. Like very, very, I wouldn't say that they're game change. They are game changing features, but they're not game breaking to not have, if that makes sense. You can still play the game. You just might not be able to do certain things. You might not be able to watch replays. You might not be able to do X and Y. This is like the beta testing sort of the game, but the game has its identity in this. In this space is the kind of idea that I want to give you. The game has an identity on some level. For instance, you will never change you will never change like the genre of the game. You will never change. You might change certain ways that the game is played, because that's how games are always iterated on, especially multiplayer games, things like MOBAs, FPS, all this. They're always iterated on to some degree. In CSGO, guns get balanced, maps get balanced in certain ways, they get overhauled. In MOBAs, heroes get balanced, items get balanced, or whatever you use, talents, whatever it is, they all get balanced. The game's always ever changing, but that's not really the point. It's more of just the fact that there won't be some big overarching change usually. It's this is what we talk about when we use this beta tag. So now I'm going to use some terms just so you guys can kind of be aware of what they are: closed beta and open beta. And I don't mean to insult anybody who has played in these and knows what these terms mean, but I just want to build up the story, if that makes sense. So closed beta is essentially an invite only, where it's you're usually, what happens is that you sign up for it prior months before, you get an email, you redeem the code that you get in the email, and then you download the launcher, you play the game. It's in closed beta. Open beta is when it's open to download. Anybody can join, anybody can provide feedback. This is the differences between open and closed beta. Now let's talk about the early access tag. This is really interesting one. This is the one that you see the most. Early access essentially is buy into an open beta. That's essentially what the tag is: buy into open beta, or like extended open beta, like halfway through open beta. This is like the idea of early access at the very least. So now that we've established all of these terms, let's actually talk about recent history and the failures of game companies, and what has happened to these tags, the alpha, beta, and early access tags. So what has happened to these? So essentially, the alpha tag is probably the one that stays the most true in this sense, simply because you don't see them as publicly available. The alpha tag is not thrown around that much. If it is, it's a very closed alpha. It's something that I think is taken to its literal meaning, but the beta tag has been thrown around, misused, misconstrued so much recently that it's very, very strange. So you'll see games that are in beta for multiple years and all of this, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with it. It does stay true to the definition of a beta in some sense, But the problem with with like almost like the cultural aspect of it, is just the fact that the game will be judged if it is available for multiple years as if it is a finished product, because it has been out in the open space for so long, and first impressions matter so much in life, but especially in the gaming world. First impressions matter so much, especially when games is a very, very competitive market, especially now, especially with the prevalence of esports and how esports is a main motivator in terms of playing these games. So really, it's it's quite strange the way that this beta tag has went and how it's developed. And I feel like developers should be very wary of this tag. I feel like you need to at least have something. You need to have the groundwork for whatever your game needs in order to be self-sustainable. For instance, I've always said MOBAs are a competitive genre. MOBAs need to be enabled to be competitive. They need to be enabled to have things like a pick and ban system in the game, replays, all this. You need to give people tools in order to be able to let the game flourish. Because like I said, even if you might be sitting in your office chair as a game developer and saying, it's fine, we're going to release it 1.5 years after open beta, it's too much time for the average person or to hold their interest when major overarching changes need to happen or make the game competitive or make the game work. So it's really strange just what's happened. I think like also early access has been majorly misconstrued. Wasn't it like until like last year I heard that H1 was the only game to get out of early access on Steam? And I haven't really heard of like, I know like a bunch of MMOs have had founder packs, which is essentially an early access system. Even Paragon had a founders pack system. But a lot of these games, they don't really get out of early access. Maybe some of the MMOs, but like, Paragon never did. Paragon had a pay early access type of thing that went up to public open beta, all that jazz. So it's just really strange how the tags are being misused. And I don't want to say that we need to alter our expectations, because I feel like that's fundamentally wrong. I don't feel like people need to alter their expectations of what the tag means. I think people need to stop misusing the tag. So, hope you guys enjoyed this piece. This piece was like a bit ranty and might have been a bit hard to follow, but I just kind of wanted to get it out there where it has been bothering me how the beta tag has been misused so much. And hope you guys enjoyed this stuff, like, comment, subscribe as always, and peace.